Hello, friends. It's Amy Calandrino, and I'm coming back to you with another episode of the Performance Mindset Podcast. After about a decade and a half of advising a lot of businesses and families on their commercial real estate needs, I've met some impactful and influential leaders along the way. If you're looking to grow, you are tuning into the right show. And then today, as you know, I might have to look at this. I have Cory Zelnik on the podcast. Cory Zelnik is the founder and CEO of Zelnik & Company, a boutique retail brokerage based in New York City. With decades of experience in the retail real estate market, Cory has successfully built a reputation for delivering outstanding results to both tenants and landlords in one of the most competitive markets in the world. He has a relationship-driven approach, and he combines traditional networking with cutting-edge social media to stay ahead in the retail industry. He has a passion for fitness, especially running, and he mirrors his commitment to maintaining balance and discipline in both his personal and professional life. He also has a successful podcast, which I was on, where he shares insights on the evolving world of retail real estate. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Amy. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad you're returning the favor. Very much looking forward to spending some time with you.
I had actually, speaking of running, I actually did a few miles this morning, which I don't usually do in the morning. And then I've had more coffee and I'm intermittent fasting. So that might be why, with no food and extra coffee and running, why I'm so like, woo, today.
Well, you're just naturally hyper. You're next level hyper.
We're on another level this morning.
That's okay. We're pretty quick up here in New York. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, maybe I'm just on the New York speed rather than the Florida speed today.
Exactly right.
So you have your own boutique brokerage. How did you get into real estate, and when did you establish your firm? And tell us a little bit about what you do.
Sure. So as you mentioned, I'm in the retail real estate business for several decades now, more than three, about 35 years in total. And I got into the business by accident. The quick snapshot is a friend of mine, I was looking for a job back in 1986. Silly me thought I'd go to Wall Street with no business degree or anything like that. I never blamed my parents, but I had limited guidance, and I thought I was going to do whatever I was going to do. Struck out fast. That was easy. And then a friend of mine said, look, I'm working at this company. They are a retail leasing company. I had no idea about it, never thought about it. And he said, listen, they need someone in Manhattan. They'll pay you $250 a week to walk the streets. I walked in. I met a gentleman. We spent maybe 15 minutes together. He said, "You're hired. Come back the Tuesday after Labor Day," because back then the summers were just as dead as they always have been to some degree. I came back the Tuesday after Labor Day, suit and tie, because that's what we did back in the day. He handed me a clipboard and a pen, and he goes, walk First Avenue all the way up, and then walk Second Avenue all the way down, and make notes of all the signs in the window where it says for rent. Make notes of any new tenants that have taken positions in properties that were visible to me, and that's what I did. So for $250 a week, that's how I got involved in the business. And I will say, in my career youth, I did some bouncing around. I was a little bit, quite frankly, misguided for whatever reason, mostly my fault. And I got myself sort of course corrected, if you will, by taking a job with this little drugstore company. They're called CVS. And at the time, they were a small company. They only had 1,100 stores, and they were not in New York City. They were looking to hire somebody to be their real estate director for the New York City metropolitan area. I interviewed, I did the whole corporate thing, and I landed the job. And I spent 3 years there. And when I left, I was grateful to my bosses. I thanked them for what I believe to be a corporate retail real estate master's class that I got over the course of 3 years. And the only reason that I chose to leave at that time was that we had identified about 15 locations, and some of them were ground up. They wanted to get them open. They wanted to see how they performed, and they wanted to see what was next. And quite frankly, I was in a pause. And I am a born and raised hyper New Yorker. I'm not good at pause. I'm good. I'm really good at patience, but I was bad at pause. And
Right.
so I met a gentleman who offered me a job to join his brokerage company. So it got me back into the brokerage world. I parlayed my retail drugstore experience into working with my then partner Jeff Winnick, and over the course of the next 9 years, we helped grow what was then a 39 store mom and pop drugstore chain here in New York up to 250 stores. And it was great. They subsequently were, Dwayne Reed was their name, and they were subsequently bought by Walgreens, who's owned them now for at least 10, 12 years. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but I was able to parlay that, and it was great. It allowed me to really succeed on the brokerage side of things. They certainly weren't our only account, but you could tell by the volume they were our main account. And
Right.
it also allowed me to get involved with retail real estate investments and things like that, which I still am involved with today. And after a 10-year run, you know, Jeff and I would say we hit that fork in the road. And I think the legal document says we had philosophical differences. And I went off on my own. I can't say to you that on that particular date or that particular time I had great aspirations to be on my own, but I think it was an eventuality for me,
Yeah.
and it was that conflict that we hit on that sort of precipitated the jump. And as of August 1st, Zelnik and Company is 18 years old. So it's
Wow.
been an interesting run. We've
Wow.
we've been through a lot. We started the company, and then all of a sudden there was this thing called the financial crisis, and then we came out of that. We had a good run for a little while, then all of a sudden there's a pandemic. So, I'm not going to say that I'm the traditional survivor, but as a brokerage company, we're survivors.
Oh, I mean, I find even with my own business, I'm on Beyond Commercial 4.0. I
Okay.
call it like different like upgrades, like in different like iterations as I've learned different things and learned how to because I mean it's in real whether you're in retail, industrial, office, whatever. I mean, it's ultimately things come in waves,
Sure.
in ebbs and flows, and some agents are great and some aren't, and there's you just have to manage expenses. It's quite a balancing act. It's nothing like my husband's law firm, which has much more like consistent like income coming in every month, and we
Absolutely.
can come to expect that. And so it's hard. Like pipelines all of a sudden disintegrate and then all of a sudden explode. And but no, I find to like survive, you have to constantly be evolving and changing. So the fact that you've been doing it for 18 years, that's amazing.
Thank you. And this in the way you do your business, just the way you described it. It became the phrase du jour during COVID, which was pivot. And that's really always been around. It just became, pronounced. And the fact of the
Right.
matter is that the way you operate your business, from everything you tell me and from everything that I see, is similar to what I do. And,
Right.
we pivot and shift constantly because
Right.
one, there are times where we just have to. And two, quite frankly, it's because we can. Right?
Right.
If you're at the big corporate monster, no offense to any of them, but it's, pivot and shifting is like turning a battleship. And
Oh,
so,
it is. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So I think that's, it's that aspect of things that keep you and I as independent as we are, because we don't want any part of that.
Well, and I really learned I'm a deal junkie. I love making the connections. I love, bringing people together. And so I like to have a team, but I think I don't want to have so large of a team. And I feel like I can do the same volume of business with a couple, really strong
Sure.
soldiers versus, I don't need to have a whole militia, so
Absolutely.
so it's good. And then that keeps me like able to still do deals and all of that. So, well, what are some of the challenges that you find like in New York City? Because it's, different than me. It's like we keep moving outward, or, we can do some infill projects still, here in Orlando, but New York's probably different, especially Manhattan. What are some of the challenges there?
Well, our challenges are, maybe we don't see the infill in the building and all that as often as you do, but there's a fair amount of construction always going on. Ours is just about really understanding the marketplace, defining, quite frankly, the submarkets, right, and then creating the opportunity. And we're up against challenges that everybody has everywhere, which is, there are the big boys, the CBs, the Cushmans, the Newmarks, the JLLs, et cetera. And we're just, we're a little boutique firm trying to create opportunities for ourselves, for our clients. And so we're up against that. But quite frankly, where I think we benefit is our ability to really roll up our sleeves, be hands-on with our markets and go get them. The bigger companies, they have some people who do marketing and some people who gather research and data. And yes, you need all that. Don't get me wrong, but there's something to be said, for what is the squirrel being the gatherer of that and being able to put it out there in a meaningful way from yourself, as opposed to saying, calling down to the marketing department, hey, do me a favor, send me the comps, for Midtown East. You go do Midtown East, you go feel and you touch Midtown East, you gather some of that data, and then you incorporate it into what you felt and what you touched, and it resonates well with the client base.
Well, yeah, you see it. I think to some extent, I hired a new transaction coordinator, and he's like, "Oh, I can prepare all the comps for you." And I'm like, at the end of the day, I like looking at them, selecting them, and really like understanding them, and then they can make them pretty. Like, and then I really understand it.
Yeah, and you must see it there too. And that is, unless you're really reaching into the data yourself, you can't get some key important things, right? The report's going to say they paid approximately $100 a foot, and it's a 10-year deal, and they got 6 months free. But the nuance, when you do it more hands-on, is to find out, what was the TI component with the deal? What did they get? Things like that sometimes are more important than just knowing it was a 10-year deal at $100 a square foot or whatever. So that's what we do often, but it's challenging. It is challenging right to the heart of your question. Very challenging to do that.
Yeah. Which submarkets do you feel are really because going to the X Gala, I got to see Hudson Yard. Is that one of the most upcoming submarkets, or what do you think is one of the hot new submarkets going on?
That's in there. I mean, from here, we don't even call it upcoming. It's now its own submarket. It exists. It's real. Quite frankly, they're going through some transformations over there because the way they built that retail mall, historically and traditionally and consistently, they don't succeed in New York City. And so they're doing some work to reposition the retail asset, but they have a tremendous office component. I'm not in the office market, but anecdotally speaking, the Class A office market is in full effect. It's strong. People are coming back to work. The companies are demanding it. And Hudson Yards has that new product. There's been a tremendous, over the last 5 years, I guess almost 5 years coming out of COVID, whatever it is, the flight to quality, and they have quality, and it's new, it's amenitized and things like that. And then in and around that whole area, not just what Related created, Brookfield did as well. And so, everything's there. People are living there. People are working there. They're even bidding, Related's bidding to try to get one of the next casino licenses here in New York. It's going to be a long haul, but there's a world. I don't even know if that's a submarket. That's a world. That's a world over there.
That's a world. It is pretty it was really impressive. I had never been down there. So, and when we were talking about it, I'm like, what is this? So, yeah.
And by the way, even if you're here and you go over there for a first, a second, or a fifth time, it's awe-inspiring. It's awe-inspiring. Yeah. It's the largest private development in the history of real estate for the size of it, the magnitude of it, by a private company. And so it's amazing. But that's strong. Coming out of COVID, Soho was very strong. Meatpacking District and Times Square, when the tourism reopened, people came flurrying out. And then, of course, which has been consistent across the country, luxury brands came back to life. And that's here in Madison. That's Madison Avenue. That's Soho, and that's meatpacking. Because when the Madison Avenue rents floored post COVID. They floored. They bottomed out at about $500 a square foot. The luxury brands saw that as opportunity. So now deals are coming out most recently in the vicinity of 1,800 to 2,000 a square foot again. Yeah. So that's one of those markets.
I can't even imagine. That's insane.
I always love trying to explain it to my mother, and you point to a floor tile, right? And you say, okay, that's 12 by 12, right? By 12, it's 1 square foot. Well, that's $2,000 right there. We had I think it was about 2016 or so. I believe it was 2016, 2017, what I would call the top tick in the market, anecdotally speaking, was about 4,500 or so a square foot at the corner of 57th and 5th when Bulgari had renewed their lease.
Wow. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Wow.
By the way, and this has been going on, just staying consistent with the luxury brands, where these big brands, the LVMHs and the Keurigs, have started to buy their properties.
I have seen that going
on.
Yeah,
so Keurig bought about 30, I think it was 35,000 total square feet on 3 levels. They purchased it for $932 million. Okay, so wasn't
that just recently in the last year or even 6 months?
It's been a trend. So the fast math on that is about 33,000 a foot on a purchase.
Woo!
So,
but it must have penciled for them to do it. And
I think what it is. I believe from what I've learned with these big brands, especially the European brands, their pencil is different than our pencil. They pencil for 100 years out. And so we come in, and at this particular location, there's an Armani store whose lease is rolling. They're going to leave, and they're going to put Gucci in there. And then what happens is they'll do a Gucci run for 5 years, let's just say. And then you know what? Maybe Gucci falls out of favor for a little. They'll stick another brand in. And so they have that to keep the flow going. But end of day, they own the property. What was happening with these guys is that at the end of 10 and 15-year leases, there was a reset. And the numbers were, consistently going up and up and up and up. And the taxes were going up and up and up and up. And then somebody said, this is, someone must have said, this is, fucking crazy. Let's just own this thing. And to what you said, it'll pencil out.
Well, I actually have a ton of concepts that I represent, in retail, that actually own their own real estate. So they don't have to worry about losing their leases.
Right.
I mean, it's a story all the time about them losing the leases. And I mean, how you mitigate that is you have a good tenant rep like you that give them a long, runway to kind of work for that and then get ahead of it. If they're coming up on I always call it a coronation of at the end of a lease of staying there. If you haven't been working with your tenant rep 2 years ahead of time, you're just going to have to take whatever the landlord wants to give you.
That's right.
Versus if you're actually working ahead on it, then, okay, you're going to find out where the landlord stands and whether do you want to stay or leave or whatever. It's the tenants, by the way, that are losing their lease, they're not working proactively ahead of it.
Oh yeah, they're not paying attention. And by the way, to some degree, that falls on us to monitor that so we could be there for them because their lease admin department is just pressing a button to send out the monthly check, but they're not following expirations or things like that. And what will happen is, like you said, they'll get within a year, 6 months, and that's panic time. They're in trouble.
And the landlord knows that.
Oh, sure.
They're like,
oh, sure.
You have no time to go anywhere else. You're just going to have to take whatever I hand you, even if it's 40%, 50% more.
Yeah, and I've been,
is what we're seeing.
Not to mention, I've been around landlords over the course of time that won't even contact the tenant, and they'll get somebody who's already going to pay double the rent, just sign them up, and not even talk to the existing tenant. It's happened. It has happened.
Oh, yeah, that'll happen too. Yeah. So I think I'm working on one development right now that's 17,000 square feet, and we're actually going to condoize it. Okay. And so then my hair salon is going to keep one of the condos, and then the other 2 retail condos sell it, and then the 3 office condos sell it. So which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
And then he doesn't have to be a landlord.
No, there are a fair amount of developers here in New York that'll develop a building for condominium purposes, sell the apartments, and then sell off the retail. Retail condominiums are a big thing here in New York. And oh, by the way, if you don't mind, I'm going to use that condominiumized or condoized word you just came up with. I love it. Condoized.
We use condoize all the time.
Really?
Yeah. Condoize. Yeah. When I was in the legal field, we would say, hey, we're condoizing this. So,
Okay.
yeah.
I like it.
I don't know. I don't know if it's like legit or not, but that's what we used in the law office when we're putting together the documents. So, because I'm a unique, I closed hundreds of business and real estate deals as a paralegal, preparing all the papers, passing all the papers before I did this, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Gives me a different perspective. So, you have like a strong presence on social media, but then, you also focus a lot on relationship building. Can you talk about how that like approach, benefits, your clients and how it shaped the way you run your business?
Yeah, sure. So, I've had for years, I've always been about the relationship, even pre-social media. I have one of the largest independent landlords here in New York City. I've represented now for 24 years.
Wow.
Panda Express, I represent for as long as I have my company, 18 years I represent Panda Express. It took us 8 years to sign the first lease. And so that was not, I didn't work for 8 years on a daily basis, but it was constant market information. The owner and founder of Panda Express, Andrew Chung, and his wife, Peggy, are hands-on, privately held company, 2,700 stores, but he has a McDonald's mentality. He'll tell you he's in the real estate business. So he'd be in New York on his own personal real estate business and walk by a location, take a picture. The picture would go to the Panda real estate director, who would then contact me and say, Andrew just saw this, how much? And so we didn't transact, but it was a lot of that stuff. And then finally, after 8 years, we got into gear. Lenwich, Smashburger, these are 7 to 8 year relationships that I consistently have. And that's just the way I've approached things. Now, with respect to social media, bringing that together, that approach together, we started to meet people, started to talk to people and develop relationships. And I never get on that first call or I never get on that first IRL that comes out of social media asking for anything. I just want to get to know some people and see what they're about. And I think that what social media has allowed us all to do was personalize our business. It allows for us to make warm calls as opposed to cold calls. And things have come out of that. And I think that have been some immediate impact stuff. I mean, I'm not retiring from the business because I made so much money via social media, but it has had an impact. And then I do see a very long runway that comes with that. And so I'm looking forward to, keep going and growing, as it relates to social media and the brand.
What I love is, we're independent brands and we're able to identify other independent brokers via social media and then also get to know them, which then also allows me to easily, like if I knew someone needed something in New York, like I know to, for retail, I could call you, and then, and it just brings more awareness. Sure. And I think Bob Knackel uses the saying, it's not who you know, but who knows you. And so really kind of putting out there, like I was even on a Twitter Spaces last week and I got a call like the very next day for someone who wants to buy tons and tons of real estate here in Orlando. But we'll see, never always comes to fruition, but it was like, oh, Amy's in Orlando and got to hear her talk. And, it's kind of cool. No, I like it.
And it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
It is fun. But I still have to do deals.
Yes.
So actually, as frequently as it looks like I post, I mean, I have a team behind the scenes and like I post some of it myself, but most of the time I'm like, I try to only spend like a half hour, maybe hour max on social media, like a day, like a little bit in the morning, a little bit at night. Otherwise, I can't get any deals done.
Yeah, no, I hear you. You're better than me.
Maybe sometimes longer, but you're I see you on social media actually like running a bit, and especially you do the New York City Marathon bit?
Yeah, so 2 years ago, 2022, I did my first New York City Marathon ever.
Wow.
And what happened was COVID, again, going back, COVID, pivot, shift, all that stuff. So I pivoted and shifted as it relates to my fitness routine. I was running before that, but I tried to do some different things. And I started I came across some people, one recommendation, two social media, and how to enhance my physical fitness program, for lack of a better term. And then I came across this guy, David Goggins. And
oh yes, I've heard of him. Yeah,
he's unbelievable. And and what happened was he had this thing called 4x4x48. Okay, it's you run 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours. And so I did that, and in the course of doing that, I had just found, not just, but I had found out that one of my dearest friends' father, who I also know for many, many years, acquired ALS. I don't know how he got ALS. I don't know how you say he got it, right?
Right.
And so I said, fuck it. Let's just do this 4x4x48. We'll see. We'll raise some money. We'll just, we'll have some fun doing it. And my own, it was just me, and I did it with a friend of mine because we were still remote. This was like late 20 or early 21. And so my friend of mine, my great friend Tyler Bennett, shout out, and he did it in South Jersey, and I did it in New York City. We checked in with each other prior to each 4-mile run to keep each other going. And he's an ultra marathoner, and so he was a great motivator for me. And we went and did this thing. My one non-negotiable, my wife said, you cannot run Central Park at 1 a.m. because that was
Wait, this would be even at night?
4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours.
Including nighttime.
Amy, 4 miles every 4 hours.
Oh, I guess I get it. Okay.
Right through. So the 1 a.m. as it struck, there were two 1 a.m. runs. I did each of those on the treadmill in the house. But every other run was in Central Park, and a couple of raccoons, a couple of wild, who knows what, a lot of rats. But we did it. It was well lit. It was all fun. And so in a blip, we raised $10,000. It was great. And so I was very excited about that. And then all of a sudden, I felt like I needed something new. And talking to my friend constantly, I said, you know what? Let's do the 22 marathon. And so I did my first marathon, and we had a little bit more time. We built up, and I wanted to raise $30,000. We broke through that. We ended up with like 34,000.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I was pretty happy about that. And then unfortunately last year I had an injury. I couldn't run. And so I said, I got it. And then most unfortunately, not that I was going to do it this year, and I am doing it this year, but my friend passed away. He succumbed. He would have been 84 years old. So for 7 years, he fought the hell out of that disease.
Yeah.
So we're doing it in 24. We're going to try to break $60,000 in our raise because I turned 60, so that became my number. And so that we're shooting for. And I'm in the midst of training now, and we're going to do it.
When is the marathon? Is that like November?
First Sunday in November.
Yeah.
Every year, it's November 3rd this year.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So we're excited about that. So I'm very focused, on that. And yeah.
That's awesome. I don't know what came over me, but I want to try swimming. So I have no idea how to do that. And actually, I'm going to add ChatGPT. Like, what do I need to buy? And if anyone listening knows what to do, but I want to swim open water 1 kilometer by the end of the year.
Okay. So
that's equivalent of like 20 laps. It shouldn't be that hard.
No, I would say first get in the pool and see what it looks like, right? See what it feels like. See what it feels like. It's like we went in the pool last week, and my wife jumps in. It's like, it's freezing. She's going in real slow. And I'm like, just jump in. Because once you jump in, there's only 2 things you can do: swim or drown. So just jump in, and you go and you swim, and you forget about the cold and whatever, and just go do it. Maybe you get someone to show you how to do some strokes, and you'll be fine. You're athletic, you'll be fine.
Yeah. And my editor can put this in here, but there's a thing called the Lucky's Lake Swim. So if you're ever here in Florida, or anyone listening who likes to swim, every single day it has the Guinness World Record for the longest continual daily swim. This guy's a doctor, and every day he has this big estate on this lake in Orlando, and it's by like Universal Studios.
Mhm.
And at 6 a.m., people all go out together, usually like 20 to 40 people, sometimes 100 people, because he's had like the number one swimmer at his house and stuff. So every day except for Sunday. And weekdays is earlier, Saturday's a little later, but they go across the lake and back, everybody all together. And Facebook was recommending the other day I become friends with him. So then I sent him a message. I'm like, maybe I'll do swimming. And he actually messaged me back. And I was like, well, my doctor is talking about me doing more low impact,
Okay.
and so I'm like, maybe I'll try this out. So we'll see.
All right.
I'll keep you
Good
posted.
for you.
But I think it's important. I think it helps with your overall like mental health and like energy. And it's also good to like set goals and also, you get to a certain point and you got to preserve your organs and increase your longevity.
That too. But you circle all of this stuff back, to our business, which is, it's consistency and it's focus. And so your next new project, the 17,000 feet or the next 30,000 feet you do, it's just like learning to swim. You're going to learn that project. You're going to understand that project. You're going to focus on that project and you're going to complete that project. Because I think that we have similar mindsets. It comes out in our business. It comes out in our approach. I know we've talked about general discipline and all that stuff, and that it all comes together very quickly.
That is interesting. I've had so many clients that say to me, they'll call multiple brokers. I'm the only one that answers the phone, and they tell me that if they have worked with a broker in the past, because I work with more small emerging brands, they say that please don't be the broker that like will work with me for 6 months and then like don't find something for us and then like leave us. And it's interesting. You brought the Panda Express example. You said you worked with them for 8 years before you did the first deal with them. I'm the same way. I'm not going to make anybody do a deal that doesn't make sense. Like it's got to be, I'm not going to force anything down anyone's throat. And ultimately, I think there is an instinct on behalf of an entrepreneur to know whether it's the right deal or not. And it's sometimes not the deal you do, but it's the deal you don't do.
Exactly.
But then I know once we do a really good deal together and it's a solid deal, then that's going to pave the way for so many other opportunities. But I think it's that like discipline. Like I don't lose track of anybody and I give everybody the same kind of level of quality and care and just don't give up.
Absolutely.
And just keep going.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what's next for you? Any exciting projects or initiatives? Or I know you have your podcast too. What's going on in your world?
Well, from a social media perspective, we're going to try to keep going. We're definitely going to keep going with the podcast, and we're going to just try to line up as many guests as possible that can bring information and value to our marketplace. I'd love to grow it, blow it up, whatever that even means, but we're going to just keep going forward with that. We're going to try to continue more. And Stephanie, who handles some, my social media here, most of all, anything that's sort of edited and clean, she's involved with. Anything that's spontaneous is me holding up the phone, doing my thing, one shot, all done. But she's been beating me up, and I got to get better about doing some more of that spontaneous stuff. So I'm going to, start to work on some of that. We always say that after Labor Day, school's back in session. So it's the start of a new year. And so I'm going to refocus my attention there a little bit more. And then from an overall growth perspective, pure business wise, we're just going to try to work on our national contacts a little bit better and expand that brand. I want to bring some business to you in Orlando. And so it's collaborative and something out in Texas and something, in California. So we'll do a little bit more of that, but not take our eye off the ball locally, because this is still our expertise.
Yeah, it's nice to have like a mix of different clients and I have a local focus, but then I'm also a certified women-owned business and certified, and so then I have the ability to do national institutional corporate work.
Sure.
But usually that's working in tandem with somebody from the big three. What's interesting is, and I'll connect with you offline, is I'm actually bringing someone aboard as more like a coach on my personal brand and social to make it a little bit more like cohesive and to monetize the podcast and all those different things. So I'll keep you posted on how that goes. Please. And starting that in like October. especially in anticipation for my book launch in early next year. I was going to do January 1st, but I found out it's really crappy to be bugging your friends like in the middle of the holidays to get on Amazon and buy the book, and they're trying to spend time with their families. So actually the guy I interviewed to do my coaching for my personal brand and monetize my podcast, he's like, let me tell you this, like there are publishers that recommend people launch books on January 1st, but it's often not as successful. He's like, you're going to do February 1st. So now my book's February 1st, but I trust him on that because that does make sense. Like, even if I really love someone and you were launching a book on January 1st and I'm in the middle of all this, I'm probably going to ignore your text and you're not going to get the momentum needed to make it successful. Absolutely. So I'll let you know how that goes. Well, anything that we didn't chat about, you want to chat about today?
You tell me.
We can always do a part 2,
What's that?
So we can always do a part 2.
I'm more than happy to do a part 2. I think we're all going through a phase now, at least in the retail world. You diversify a little bit more. I'm retail focused, and retail's been very strong, and we're going to ride it out a little bit. We've been the sort of the belle of the ball at the moment, and our industry and our business is cyclical, as we all know. We've both been around a little bit, and we're gonna ride the tide. I have a kid who interned for me 2 summers ago. It was great. He fell in love with the business, and he's coming to work full time for me starting next week. So I'm excited. I have young kids working for me. I love educating and teaching them. And I'm going to continue to talk to people via social media. The next generation that work at other companies and would never tell their bosses that they're talking to me, and I'm fine with that. I'm always happy to do that. I'm going to continue to do that. If there was some way to be more educational in a broader format and I could find the way, quite frankly, find the time, I'll do some of that. But right now, I'm going to continue working and grinding and doing our stuff. We got a lot of stuff to do.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's, I'm really blessed, but, I have to be like intentional about, like, I have my core group of clients. And so I'm pretty intentional about bringing on more clients and really making sure it's like a good fit and they like the high touch, approach that I have and the way I do things. So, but that's awesome. We're bringing in new people. Yeah. I have 2 new team members as well. And, it's just great to get like their perspective. And I can't believe they were born in the 2000s. I'm like, oh my God. Like, I mean, I'm not like, well, you got to see me. Like I turned 40 this year. So, but, I have many, many, many more moons ahead of me. So,
oh my God, are you kidding me? By the way, I just turned 60, and Warren Buffett, you heard of him?
Yeah, of course.
He's made over 90% of his money, after the age 60.
Yeah.
So to me, it's just getting started, and it's fun and nice. Like that, Bob Mackel and I are such great friends. We've been friends before all the social media nonsense and whatever. And, I can only look to have the success on the retail level that he's had on the investment sales side, but we're good friends. And so we collaborate on stuff and we both have the same mindset. I think he's maybe two years older, 2 years older than I am, but we just see this long runway ahead of us, and we're just going to continue to go and grow.
And shout out to Bob. Like, I think, I would definitely, after seeing him at his old map room, like in October, he was so kind to like let me out there. Like, and we had a chat, and it really like, I came back and I'm like, okay, I'm going to I have an abundance mindset, but even more so in like, who's my tribe? And it's really the growth minded entrepreneur and, who is that person? Who am I going to add the most value to? And then, I'm definitely having either the owner or the business has to be in a certain geographical area. Not that I can't help them with the other stuff, but then I think it just brings more cohesiveness and consistency and more of a lens. And so I like that he has more of a specialist, but he's great. And then when I made my Beyond Bulletin, he gave me a call to let me know he got it. So it was like, I'm going to try to do this quarterly. I hope I have you on the list. And if not, I'll make sure. Please. I don't know if I mailed it to you or not, but please do. This was great. So I'm going to go ahead and land the plane. And thanks to everyone today for tuning into the Performance Mindset Podcast. And let's all continue to go beyond strengthening that performance mindset. I'm your host, Amy Calandrino, signing off.